Whenever someone gets involved in starting to prepare for any kind of disaster or emergency or some perceived eventuality, doesn't matter what it is, I think it's fair to say that people need to ask themselves a very important question. What are you doing this for? What is the end game here? Because a lot of people tend to prepare for their own inner circles, survival of some kind of disaster or emergency, and it could be something that's very local, something that's very specific to their situation, to their country, to their city, whatever it might be. And history does show that a lot of times things are going to play out in a way that no one could have predicted. Things might actually be okay. So I'd like to highlight this man's story because I think it is a very real possible outcome for many of us. I know I say it occasionally, but you have to look at ancient Rome. The Roman Empire is no longer there, but Rome has stood for 2,000 years. Take from that statement what you will. Continuity of a lifestyle, of a way of living, is something that humans tend to strive for. So while the old systems may not be in place, the cities, the living structures, the hierarchies of that particular area still stood. And it's not just Rome. Take a look at many of these major cities today: Paris, London. These places used to be the seats of old defunct governments. They used to be outposts. There's lots of cities that exist today that used to be named something else. Take a look at Shanghai, look at Tokyo, Manila. All these different places used to be something else. But for the most part, the same type of people who were in charge still are. There's a deeper context to that, but that's not going to be the focus of today. Today, I want to highlight this man's story because I think it's going to be a reality for most of us. From NJ.com, True Jersey. How a heartbroken doomsday prepper who lost everything is now saving hurricane victims. This article was originally published in 2017 and was updated in 2019. So let's go ahead and read the story. Here's a picture of him with some stored food. Medford survivalist Joseph Badam with some of the many barrels of dried food and supplies he has accumulated over the years. You probably wouldn't expect to find a doomsday prepper's compound at the end of a nice cul-de-sac off of Tuckerton Road, otherwise lined with large houses with pools. But that's where Joseph Badam, 74, has spent most of his life, building and outfitting his home and outbuildings for the day when, he believes, an economic collapse will make it all necessary for survival. If you're picturing a reclusive wild man wearing camouflage, think again. Here's a shot of the inside of his house. Badam is an educated, intelligent, mild-mannered architect who is involved in his church, among other things, until the death of his beloved wife Phyllis in 2013. The passion for prepping was something they shared. The shelter he built and his accumulation of supplies, enough so that 100 people could live there, was Badam's life's work. The couple built the place, with its subterranean living area and lead-lined bomb shelter, along with outbuildings. For 40 years, they filled them with everything they'd need, from coal furnaces and kerosene refrigerators to barrels of food and other supplies. But he's losing it all now after the bank foreclosed on his property. "I'm losing this house," he said, looking at the building from his driveway Monday. "It's a blow to a man who is still heartbroken from losing his wife. This will never be a survival dwelling for Phyllis or I." But he admits his passion for creating the perfect shelter has diminished since his wife's death, and there are few family members and friends left to worry about saving. "I described myself as a spirit in search of a purpose," he said. That does encapsulate a lot of our concerns, a lot of our fears, maybe how we perceive ourselves, because we are doing this for people that we care about, not necessarily just for us, but our friends, our family members. We want these people to be okay in case something does happen. Let's continue. Remarkably, he found what he was looking for before the estate sale this past weekend when he met Victoria Martinez Barber, 30. She and her husband, Anthony Barber, were hired to provide food at the estate sale through Tony and Tori's Grill, the food truck they run. Martinez Barber told Badam that all the money from the food truck was going to help her family in Puerto Rico. They were alive but homeless and hungry in Arecibo thanks to Hurricane Maria. He donated $100. Then he showed her his food storeroom. And let's take a look. This is a lot of food that he stored away. These barrels are pretty massive. They're big. They are definitely going to hold a lot of grain. Barrels of dried food and supplies stored in survivalist Joseph Badam's Medford basement are being donated to Puerto Rican hurricane relief. And it looks like those are bags of rice. So he is definitely prepared for a lot. I saw everything that my family would need or eat, she said with emotion, gesturing to a stack of cans and boxes of Vienna sausages that Badam was using as a seat Monday. Badam decided that instead of selling the food at the sale, he would give it all to his new acquaintances to ship to Puerto Rico. It will feed people who desperately need it, even if it's not the people they originally intended. I've lost everything, my wife, my house, everything, he said. The last thing I was going to lose is the food. It was going to be trashed. Finding his purpose in getting the food and supplies to Puerto Rico has lifted his spirits. But on top of that, he also found a kind of adopted family. He moved the RV he's living in into the yard of Barber and Martinez Barber. We joke that he's my new dad, Martinez Barber said, grinning at Badam from her seat on a pile of sandbags in the driveway. A life's work. The story of how Badam and his late wife became survivalists starts in Camden, where they grew up a generation apart. Phyllis was 16 years his senior and his 8th grade teacher. It's an unorthodox love story, but Badam said he doesn't care what people think because they were happily married for 45 years. Phyllis was his mentor, and they didn't express their love until he went to college. For 7 years he kept asking her to marry him, and she finally said yes when he was in the Peace Corps in Tunisia. When the couple returned from Tunisia 2 years later, they found a serious shortage, and cities around the country experiencing riots. Camden was burning, he said. This fueled their prepping plans, and they started looking for a place to build a home where they could survive anything. The house in Medford was finished by 1976. Badam said they tried to convince their friends and family to prepare for the worst, but no one took them seriously. Nobody would do it, so Phyllis is the one who came up with the idea to do it for them, he said, being selfless as usual. They came up with a list of family and friends and built it to handle all of them. Over the decades, Badam estimates they've spent $1 million on the project. It comprises about 8,500 square feet of space. Because they planned for so many to live there, there are multiple fully outfitted kitchens, bathrooms, washers and dryers, and other appliances. There's even a locker room-style bathroom in the garage with several showers, toilets, and vanities. Several years ago, when the street lost power for 4 days, his neighbors were grateful for a hot shower there, he said. The lead-lined door and several bunks in Joseph Badam's bomb shelter pictured prior to his estate sale this past weekend. You can see that he had a fairly extensive setup. It wasn't small or it wasn't a rinky-dink type of operation at all. This was definitely set up for long-term living. While Badam believes that the disaster that's coming is of the economic variety, he built a bomb shelter just in case. The lead-ceilinged space has 6 beds, kitchen and bathroom fixtures, and a switch so one could turn on the generator without going above ground. The generators all went in the estate sale, but nobody took the giant coal furnaces or the tons of coal that Badam has been getting straight from a mine in Pennsylvania. Let's think about the scale of preparation that this man has. He has tons of coal straight from the mine. I don't think there's a lot of people out there, especially in the prepper world, that can really compete with the level of preparation that this couple did since 1976. It's very impressive. The basement that holds his office also has barrels and barrels of flour, rice, salt, and other food, as well as a survival library, with books on how to do everything from minor surgery to creating household items from scratch. It looks like his library has a manual, auto manuals, gardening manuals, arc welding, that's new, Bible, I guess that's a pretty good one. Badam's focus changed 12 years ago when Phyllis suffered a stroke that partially paralyzed her and affected her hearing and sight. Doctors told Badam maybe she had a year, so he took out a $500,000 loan on the house and focused on giving her the best year ever, including a cruise. But she ended up living 8 more years, and the cost of her care and several trips, all while Badam couldn't work, meant he went broke the year she died. M&T Bank began the foreclosure process this year. Knowing he would be kicked out soon, Badam contacted Medford Company Store Estate Sales to try and sell his belongings. Co-owner Pam Scherzer said she and her husband Mark Scherzer have never done an estate sale on this scale before. She estimated as many as 2,000 people came. Walking through the place, she said, you had to marvel at how logical and smart he was about everything he collected. The man's brilliant, she said, and his whole purpose was humanitarian. This should highlight exactly the type of prepper image that we should cultivate in the public mind. Survival for others. Badam, the Martinez barbers, and the couple's friends and relatives are now spending hours a day getting all the food they can into their garage before the bank blocks him from the property. They'll start by sending 2 pallets of food and toiletries as soon as possible, and the Martinez barbers are going to pack as much as they can into their luggage when they head down themselves this weekend. Each barrel that Badam has packed for them contains enough food for 84 people to live for 4 months on 2,000 calories a day, he said. It would keep Martinez Barber's family alive for quite a while, she said, but she knows they'll be sharing it with anyone they can since everyone is hungry. Phyllis and I prepared all of this for one group of people, and it turns out it's going to help another group of people. That's wonderful, Badam said. Martinez Barber's relatives were rescued from their roof by boats, but have nothing. When they can get cell service to send word, it's of standing in line for hours for FEMA assistance that was promised but never came. They've been told it will be 6 months before they have electricity and water, Martinez Barber said. Tony and Tori's Grill is also continuing to raise funds for them by offering Puerto Rican cuisine at their food truck parked at their home at 496 Tuckerton Road, Thursday and Friday from 4 to 9 p.m. It's going to be a multi-staged rescue effort with probably a year's worth of sending stuff, Badam said. It's just the kind of purpose he's been looking for. So what's next for Badam? He said he'll stay at the Martinez Barber property for now while they work on getting the food and supplies off his property. After that, he has an invitation from a member of his church to park his RV at her house in Shamong for as long as he wants. I've been adopted by so many families, he said. His new home makes him feel rather exposed because it is too small to store as much as he'd like. It's not a good shelter, but it has one advantage. It moves, he said. Plus, he has a generator and 3 months' worth of food and water stored on it, should the worst happen. I think this definitely highlights a lot of our concerns. We want to make sure that our families are prepared. We want to make sure that everyone will be okay. But as you can see, life catches up to you pretty fast. They probably didn't expect it to turn out like this. So instead of, helping his inner circle that he envisioned, he ends up helping people that he never really incorporated into the plan to begin with. And because he wasn't like I said, a Looney Tune, he actually had a community come in and help him. I'm assuming help him liquidate items in the house, acquire enough materials that he'd need to actually live out, reasonably comfortable considering all the circumstances involved in his particular situation. And I know that there are going to be pessimists saying, well, why doesn't he, if he was so great within the community, how come they didn't chip in? How come they didn't help him? Well, you also have to think that this isn't a small property. This is millions of dollars, I'm assuming, of taxable land that he's sitting on. And we all know how that turns out. Depending on your view of the tax laws in this country, you know exactly what's going to happen here. It's not going to be an easy time, and I don't think, while people's generosity can be very, very helpful, I don't think that you're going to be able to find too many people who is going to foot the bill for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of taxes and maintenance and upkeep from the kindness of their hearts. Even if they wanted to, it's a question of, is it even realistic to? I think for most people that answer is no. There's no way that a person is going to not only take care of themselves in this area, but also help him. But they did manage to connect him with people that would allow him to park at these places, help move his stuff around, and I'm assuming take care of his other needs while he gets everything situated. So it highlights what I was talking about, this community aspect. You can't do everything alone. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. Yes, I am aware that there are groups out there that would like to see you fail. I'm not saying you should necessarily connect with those type of people or try to convert them. I'm trying to say we should connect with like-minded individuals who value continuity. You definitely have to have a mission. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a goal. If people's goals align with yours, maybe see what they can offer, see what you can teach each other, help each other, because that's how we're going to get through any of these desperate, dire circumstances that we may or may not have planned for. This story should highlight the fact that you might be able to prepare for one scenario, but you can definitely never prepare for them all. So I hope this story makes you think about it a little. I think that it's something that should be shared. The reality of our world is very important. It's very important to keep perspective and to remember that there is a life outside of all of this internet silliness where everything is dividing us and the world is burning, because it's always going to seem crazy. So the best thing that we can do is make sure that our own little slice of it is less crazy than it has to be. So until the next video, be good, stay safe, and have a good one.